official.
Where are you there? Hey, Claire.
Right in Minnesota right now, or Wisconsin.
He is typing to me right now.
Oh.
So.
Can we get them on the screen?
Rick, are you okay running the meeting? Is it okay if I ask Claire that?
I just need her to open it.
Yeah. She says she has too much background.
Hey, Matt, if there's some procedural thing you need me to do, I can do that now for a second.
Yep, if you just want to call the meeting to order and then you can hand off the meeting to Rick, it sounds like. He's okay running the meeting if you're okay with that.
Great. Thanks so much, Rick. Sorry about that.
Right.
Let's call this budget meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. and Mayor Scholl will chair the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And I want to state for the record that Council Berkeley is dismissed because he is traveling. So it's hard to be attending. So then we'll just go ahead and do roll call, I guess. Mayor Scholl, we'll go around the room, do roll call, and then we can see who's on there. We don't need you to announce yourself, but if you'd like to, that's fine on Zoom too. If you're a budget committee member, please.
Mark Gunderson. Garrett Lyons.
You're not.
Yeah.
Steve Topaz, council.
Jessica Chilton, councilwoman.
Okay, and I think is Crystal.
That would be Crystal King.
Okay, Lynn Pettit.
Lynn Pettit is not on.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. We actually, Steve is not. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and just go on to our first item on the agenda, which is approval of minutes. April 13th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 13th, 2021 minutes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the April 13th, 2021 minutes. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, the second item is April 27th, 2021 minutes.
Motion to approve the 27th, 2021 minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the April 27th, 2021 minutes. All in favor? Opposed? We're just gonna consider you an aye, okay? You jump in if you're a nay. There, that's great. A thumbs up is perfect. Okay, our third item is the May 12th, 2022 minutes.
I make a motion to approve the May 12th, 2022 minutes.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the May 12th, 2022 minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Not hearing any. Okay, we'll go ahead and, our fourth item is public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, now is the time to do that.
Oh, Steve Dawson on Zoom.
We see you.
Okay, brief comment. Last night at the Planning Commission, we ended up denying a request for a plat in part due to the situation with the sewer and the engineers reporting that there's a lot of risk in for the connection with the sewer system. The projected time frame in fixing a portion of the system was critical, is estimated to 2 to 4 years. I understand that the budget committee isn't going to be deciding how to fund or move forward with that project, but I'm coming forward as a citizen stating that that time frame is something that should be narrowed, and that resources should be found to try to move that project forward as quickly as possible, as well as other aspects of the infrastructure improvements. I just wanted to throw that out there for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, other public comments? Not seeing any. Lynn, did you have anything?
No comment.
All right. So I think before we get started on that, I just have a comment on our budget. And it has to do with a department that I'm liaison over, and it has to do with Public Works. And there was no mention in this meeting or to myself or Council President Morton about positions being removed from this budget. A couple in particular would be the mechanic position, which is operations, because we modified that job, and the water filtration sewer position, 1 of 4 was removed. And it's a very vitally important position that was just removed unannounced to anybody. And I'm wondering how that happened. And has anybody else heard of those positions being removed? Because I hadn't.
I want to weigh in on that as well. As you just stated, yourself and myself are liaisons to that department, as well as administration and parks. We've got a bulk of the city budget in a sense. I don't know, as many of you know, that I've been doing this. This is my 16th budget meeting, and the majority of those in Public Works, of those budget meetings, was my baby. It was my deal because at that time I was not a liaison. I oversaw Public Works, and so I spent much time with department heads in facilitating what we wanted in our goals, and whether it was in operations or whatever. It was I knew this time what was going to be presented and how it was going to be presented. It was going to be presented by the department heads. I already knew exactly what it was, and any discrepancies between myself and the council were ironed out quite a few weeks and months before this meeting. It isn't that way now. As liaisons, our department heads need to make that decision, probably passed on by the finance director saying you've got this much amount to spend or whatever. I don't know really how it works at that level, but it's all a surprise, Rick, at this point. It's like, oh my heavens, we've got those 4 positions that you talked about. not on here, not having really the opportunity to go in and talk to the department head and say, what are you thinking? Had no kind of conversations that way, because apparently it was put to the department head that that was the amount of money and what are we gonna cut? Now, Public Works and 4 positions that way, just, I have to agree with you. So I don't get it, how it happened, why it happened, and I'm upset.
So I would ask Matt, how those positions and how many other positions ended up missing out of the budget and what departments and why?
What
For an
positions,
explanation that weren't budgeted for this year.
what positions were you talking about? Because I still have 2 mechanics.
Operator 1, Operator 2, permanent coordinator for, and Operator 4 for,
So I have, for
Yeah.
wastewater treatment plant, I have 5 positions listed. Water quality manager, which is Aaron. I have a wastewater treatment plant operator 1 to be hired, an operator 2, a pre-treatment coordinator, and an operator 4 in the budget.
So it was told when our department head went to look.
There's a water, the water position operator, I believe one that was taken out as a surprise, I found out last week.
Still have a water filtration, wastewater treatment plant
It
operator.
magically appears and
Yes,
disappears.
it was gone last week.
Nothing has changed.
So,
I haven't seen this. one.
2 mechanics, it's the same spreadsheet that I sent you in February. It's also the same spreadsheet
so
that
you
we
didn't
talked
have a
about.
conversation, you did not have a conversation about this?
About the positions,
Yes,
the wastewater treatment plant positions.
yes.
We did have a conversation on public works positions, but no wastewater treatment plant positions were cut.
And so we have total funding of every position still available as last
Every
year.
position that was in the budget was. is
What was
still-
removed from the budget that was not announced to the committee?
The only thing that was removed,
Because that's what I'm talking about. We talked about the library, we all knew about that, but I want to know what was removed from the budget.
there was a list of positions that were removed.
And they were not announced to this budget committee.
They should
They
have,
were not announced to this budget committee. Librarian was, youth librarian was. That was it.
Rick, on the youth library, it was announced kind of after there was stone throwing, yelling and screaming. There was no courtesy announcement to myself or the library ahead of the announcement. So how it happened, in hindsight, we had 4 steps that nobody knew about. So it was not a clean announcement by any means.
I will remind the staff
So
and Rick, because,
remind the staff, you're talking to the budget committee and
and
I wanted answers to know why the budget committee was not notified of positions that were there last year are not there this year.
in public works, were the positions that Mohammed initially tried to put in his requests.
Okay, so
My
that-
question is, how did it get brought to your attention?
because there was a conversation amongst staff that the positions were no longer in the budget. When my department head went to look at his report, it was not there, and magically it has apparently reappeared.
I would love to see the report that says that it's not there. And I have shared with the department head as well as the city administrator, the report of all the staffing that was back in February. And was also reviewed by the city administrator and myself when we together put the budget together.
So I have a question, Mr. Matt. So the water operator 1 that was vacant that I asked you about 2 weeks ago and you said it's gone due to budget cuts. Is that still available or that's
The
actually?
water operator 1 position is not the position that you were looking at. It
That was
a-
in the budget.
It was
That
a
is not in the
utility
budget.
worker 1 position.
That was a different one. There's another position in
The
public. works.
conversation that we
This
had
one.
with John was over the position of Adam Silver. And from my recollection, when I saw the job posting job announcement of a part-time public works person. That was when I emailed you and John and said, hey, I don't have a part-time staff person in the budget.
I'd like to hear from John about this
Conversation.
disagreement here.
Mhm.
I mean, you're their boss, right?
I'm not sure that I can resolve what was said between the two.
Do you recall, because Matt Brown is saying that you were involved in that conversation?
There's been a lot of what if scenarios just on the budget about some really pretty extreme kinds of scenarios we've looked at as far as removing positions from the budget, you know, library, youth librarian, works, public works, people all across the organization. And just since the budget's been adopted, there seems like there's been a lot of back and forth going on. And I don't know, I can't comment on.
Yeah, basically touch base. I received an email from Mr. Brown that simply explained what if worst case scenario, some position he recommended to remove. I looked at it, I forwarded to John and say, hey, I cannot answer to any of those. This is above my pretty much decision ability. Any position needs to be cut, should be discussed with leadership, not with me. And from that point on, I moved on. So assuming none of those moved, and if anything have been removed, I have no knowledge of it. So my awareness is the only 4 positions that were new, put in the budget, which have seen here, those I approved. And I agreed to remove them because to support the city with the budget and not to now. If anything else is removed outside of that, I have no idea what. You know, again, if there's something in the vaccine, I'm just not aware.
So would that be the utility one, building maintenance that I heard that got removed?
Yes.
The utility billing one was an additional position that Mohammed requested, and John and I both denied that position because of the restraints of the budget.
What about summer help? We always do that every year.
Summer help was not included in the public works operations budget when John and I initially talked with departments.
So these are big moves that shouldn't just be between John and you. They should be also to the budget committee on where you are taking. These are big. When we're talking water filtration, we're talking.
There were no cuts for water filtration.
So that's
Operator one.
Operator one is still in the budget.
So when it magically appears. Yeah, it was magically
I
appeared.
think Mohammed is confusing the water operator.
I think you're
one with the
confusing.
utility worker one.
Sorry, I disagree with you.
Mayor, I'm not gonna stand here. We're here
No.
for a budget meeting with the specific
Well,
tasks.
Matt, you work for us.
Okay.
You will answer when we have questions that we want, but. you don't
I'm
answer.
happy to answer questions, but when it feels like I've got 4 people ganging up on me who never even have spoken to me before this meeting, other than me having a conversation last week with
Nobody's
John.
ganging up on you, Matt.
You are.
No, we're not.
You are.
Well, this is gonna come
I agree
before the
that we should
council.
address this, but I also think that it should be going through John, who is the leader of the staff.
I agree, and I did not make any budget adjustments without John in the room with me.
So let me ask this, when the budget was approved,
Yes.
was anything removed from the budget that we don't know about? You agree with that?
I don't agree with that.
So
Not from my it's my misunderstanding that.
does anybody else
I mean,
disagree with that?
I disagree because I was told there is several positions that were removed and they were removed due to budget cuts that I did not approve.
he's the guy I go in and ask what's going on.
I
And
haven't seen the final,
And I-
obviously.
Here's the staffing summary. Here is this year compared to last year, 26 and 26.2. FTEs actually increased 0.2.
But we're already missing positions that were not filled. That's where you're wrong. We are already missing positions that aren't filled. That's where you take them away. That's where you took them away. So I've been liaison for now 2 years over this. And I remember clearly us taking those positions and putting them on hold and they have been taken away. So you need to be completely honest with everybody about that. And if we go back 3 years,
Look at the summary.
So I don't have it in front of me, but I do recall from the last budget committee meeting that there was an overall of the different departments and the possibilities of positions that could be cut or that could be added. Do you remember that slide? I don't have it in front of me. But were those positions, can we have access to that slide or
Yeah, I can
find that so we can just look at it?
Jessica, is it in here?
It probably is in there, yeah.
That slide is not in.
That slide isn't in there? Okay.
That was part of the budget committee.
Because I remember us talking about that.
So what I'm gonna do because we do have Steve Donovan here, is that, we as a council will further this discussion if the budget committee does not mind. Because that's just what we'll do, so. All right, so, because we do have Steve Donovan here and we have very important issues in our city. And it seems like this conversation is going nowhere right now. We're gonna move on. So,
Before you move on,
yes,
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
I don't know exactly what the people that run a department are called or.
department heads, yes, yes.
And so if a department head says, I request another position,
Yes,
that does not come to the budget committee. It gets taken care of by Matt and John.
if it's in the general budget and there is our budget so tight that it would not, and we'd actually go through the process of drawing it up like Mohammed has done. And took it off the table because he knew that two new police officers needed to be added as well. And the youth librarian, and it just didn't fit in our budget this year.
Okay, so it's not,
What I'm saying is that 3 years ago, we had more positions there that were never filled, that just eventually just got taken away.
I'm not asking about positions. All I'm asking is the process.
So,
Typically, it would come to budget committee for us to approve adding positions and then, in turn, upping the budget.
The program amount, but the council, when we have new job descriptions or filling positions, we typically come to the council.
Yeah.
Summer helpers and things like that, we don't. It's-
And at that point, the budget has to be modified, correct? Or
The
those,
budget contemplates those people being part of it.
they said, well, we can fit it in our budget and we would like to go ahead.
but you gotta pull from somewhere else.
Sometimes it's savings within the department.
Okay.
Which Mohammed has done a phenomenal job on as far as a lot of savings.
So it's not just a decision between.
I mean, big leaps and bounds.
So for instance, at the last budget committee meeting, we approved, the budget with looking at the possibility of adding the 2 police officers. And then in council, we agreed to do that. So that's what you're saying is the process. We kind of agree monetary and the council actually agrees on how the money will be spent. Correct?
The question I'm asking is, if the department head comes and asks for another position, it has to go to the council before they're refused. Or
position, yes.
A new one, yes, a new one, but an existing one that went away and never got filled. It should not have to be requested to have it back
No, but I'm just saying, if
3 years ago.
the council it has to come before the council if some department head wants to hire somebody else or put a new position.
That's correct, yes. Yep, so.
A job description that gets created and that gets approved by the council and an authorization to go out.
Okay.
And clearly when they're taken away, which we heard by the youth librarian, or not gonna be filled by the department head, can definitely rally the troops. They had a huge following, and it was a vital position that we all felt was vitally important. And that wasn't really a discussion between, do you have any discussion on that? So again, I'm wondering, that's kind of what I'm questioning Matt Brown about, is why isn't the liaisons and whatnot consulted prior to understanding our community? Because we are running the city as counselors. So that's why I was asking those questions today. It was not an attack on Matt Brown. It wasn't 4 against 1. So that's why I'm moving on to. We'll get it figured out. So with that, we're gonna go on to Our next item, which is presentation by Steve Donovan and Matt Brown. I will look to you guys.
Go ahead, kick it off, Matt.
So this is a kind of a regurgitation of the information that the city council received at the budget committee meeting. Most of you remember, it was, I believe, Garrett Lyons that requested to kind of talk more about the utility rate structure to see what opportunities there may be in the 5-year rate forecast that Steve and I recommended to the council. So we're going to go through a few slides here. Steve's obviously here to answer any questions you may have. Mohammed and Sharon are here to answer questions about projects that are on the lists and in the budget. And we're happy to answer any questions and go through the capital improvement plan projects. So you do have an additional document in your packet, which was, I believe, 3 pages of the water, sewer, and storm. These were the list of the master projects from the newly updated master plans. So the 5-year forecast that Steve is going to go through anticipates the city moving forward on the priority 1 projects, which are the initial first 5 years, and some debt service that goes along with that, with the recommended rate structure that we have. So I think that kind of sums up.
Right, and I can take it from there. And this is, without beating a really dead horse, we beat up the council. We did a work session with you folks, and then we did a formal presentation at a business meeting. So Doug, I mean, you've all seen this show before. So what you're going to see today, for the benefit of the balance of the budget committee members, is a slimmed down presentation here. It's going to be 3 slides, frankly, and we want to really promote conversation with you folks. And really what we wanted to put this in the blinders on, rather than driving us into Steve Topaz language of a lot of detail, which Steve likes. This is going to be kind of out of the weeds a little bit, up on top. We're going to talk about 3 lines on a chart that we're going to show you on the next slide. And those 3 cases are do nothing, staff recommendation, and then cash financing or of all high priority master plan projects in the context of what does that mean to the average single family residential monthly sewer bill of water, sewer, and storm. Let's go to that chart if we can. The green line on the bottom is the do nothing. And you kind of ask yourself, well, do nothing, who does do nothing? Lots of people do nothing. It is an action and it usually drives you into the ditch, right, Rick? Mm-hmm. Do nothing and you're going to drive into the ditch because your utilities are capital intensive. Frankly, they're money furnaces, like some people call them. They take constant care in feeding. The blue line is something that I normally don't do, but Matt convinced me, and it made a lot of sense now that we brought it here. What if we did all of the priority capital improvement projects in our plans the first 5 years, and we cash finance them through rates? And as you can see, we would drive your rates up from what they are now of $102. In the 5th year, it'd be $240. But the good side of that is you're stewards of the system, so that when the next group of people come up to take your place, they've got a fairly refreshed infrastructure that's paid for. Unfortunately, it's $240 a month. And that is just untenable, simply untenable in our judgment. And I think somebody, I don't know, somebody on this committee was thinking, we need to do more. And we all agree we need to do more. That's not a question. It's a question of, can we do it financially responsibly? So the orange line is what we proposed to the council, and what the council adopted the first year is a plan that incorporates modest use of debt, particularly in sewer, a little bit of tight building in water, and doing what we got to do in stormwater. And I think one of your folks that came in and said a land use application did not get approved and it's going to take 2 years to get a sewer connection. Well, part of the sewer plan is we're going to go to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality and we're going to borrow money right away to fix the problems in Basin 4. And then 2 years later, we're going to borrow some more money to do Basin 5. And for your benefit, and I know you guys on the council know this, but we're talking about borrowing $10.4 million right away in Basin 4. And then 2 years later, 4.9 million for Basin 5. Basins and 6? 6 and 5, okay, sorry. So these, you're not immune to this. Everybody is facing this. So you're not alone. Secondly, you have experience with the Oregon DEQ Clean Water State Revolving Loan Program. You have those loans now. I think you're servicing one now, right, Matt? Yeah. So this is not new. You will qualify for these loans, and they'll be low interest loans. And I was in a meeting last week. If this project provides water quality enhancement, you could qualify for a $500,000 loan forgiveness on both of these loans. So that'd be $1 million of loan forgiveness, depending on your qualification status. I'm not their loan officer, but DEQ's aware of it, by the way. They know you're coming. The loan officer for this region says, give me a call. Sharon's got her number, and you're gonna be hearing about this regularly. So the question about, we gotta get going on sewer, yeah, we got in that plan to get going on sewer. Water's in a little better shape. Water is you're blessed with water. And then stormwater is just, it's so small and your rates are so low now that any large project just blows the stormwater rate out of the water. So we're gonna manage that carefully, but that orange line will take you about from $102 down to out to about $140 at the end of the 5 years. And that's about I think, what was it, 7% per year, Matt? Was that what it came in at? So, yep. Depending on what you believe inflation is going to be, it could either be in line with inflation or way above inflation. So let's go to the next slide, Matt. Or wait, no, let's stay here. Anybody else on the budget committee? Do you have any issues or concerns about what we're presenting here or how we've presented it?
Yeah. This is your thoughts. There are some other facets that might get thrown in, like some of the stormwater and sewer has to do where you fix the street, where you put your stormwater gutters, sidewalks. So some of these projects overlap. How does that affect these financial lines?
It could adversely affect them. It could make them rate the slope of the line higher.
What's the worst case then? I don't like the bad news as bad as
My experience is these sewer projects, and I'll defer to the experts, but these are not collector sewers. These are main trunk sewers. So they've got their own alignments. And yeah, there may be some street dig ups. Yes, no? We're gonna be digging up streets. But within the budget of that orange line is for the repair and rehabilitation of the street. We won't replace the street, but we'll repair it to our pre-existing conditions.
And that's the problem with some of these places, you're gonna have to replace the street if you want to.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's an investigation. You find out that the street that you're digging up is already a failure.
Let's stop right there. Do we have any money for investigation to adjust this line in this budget?
Yes. Yes.
So we've got an engineering plan to find out what's going on.
That was part of the, and that's the beauty, and once again, I'm really congratulate you folks. You put the horse in front of the cart and you built master plans in these last 2 years, right? Last year, you adopted the sewer master plan and the stormwater. Within those plans, each project that was identified has investigations, preliminary engineering, full engineering and construction costs and contingency.
How can you give me a number until after the investigation's done?
I can't, I just be fibbing you.
So this is, hopefully that's a good line.
Hopefully, it's the best judgment we've got based on your master plans. And that's the good thing is you got master plans because there's a lot of communities that don't even have a plan and they're in your troubled position. Sir, you had another question.
Yes, I know this thing really is slimmed down information, but what's the ratio of debt to charges? I mean, you're talking about debt, and then you're talking about charges to people's utilities.
Sure. Well, I mean, okay, I can tell you that. Generally speaking, if you borrow $1 at 2%, it would be 8 cents per month to the rate. Is that what you're driving at? If we borrow $1, how much does that turn into the rate? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm trying to get clarification. So essentially, you're saying we're gonna be borrowing this, and this is what we have, the charges are gonna be to pay off the debt.
Well, in addition to other debt that you've already got on your books and operations and maintenance expense.
Okay,
So it's the full boat. It's the full cost of running the utility in addition to debt service now and incremental new debt service that we plan on taking out.
okay, so most of these projects are gonna be done by debt service then?
And sewer, absolutely. In water, it's gonna be cash financed. And in stormwater, potentially one project that the Columbia project, right, would be debt financed, but we might get a very preferential situation there under the DEQ rules. So the answer is yes.
Okay.
In anticipation that we might be able to get, like you said, some help financially, from other,
Oh, and
yes.
these three will be turning over every rock you could think of, and we'll help with that.
And it's $7 a year for the next 5 years, pretty much.
Pretty much.
That's what it will.
Pretty much. And the other thing is, this is a 5-year plan. If you say, okay, we don't want to do year 2, but maybe we'll do year 5, this plan's gonna fall in on its face. We gotta follow the plan every year. It's just like the mortgage that you take out on the house. You know, you can't stop making the plan. So that's what I wanted, and I know you brought this up. You said, what if we choose not to? And Doug, the answer was it's gonna fall in on its face. It's a 5-year plan. You follow the plan. Every year you measure performance against your plan, and you either adjust your plan up or down to accommodate your performance. It's kind of like a business plan, you know?
I just want to go ahead and clarify that I'm turning my chair position back over to our chair. It's,
But I also make one comment, given just the previous discussion we had, I want to make sure the budget committee knows that this 5-year plan assumes no change in staff. So if the public works director or engineering want to add more positions, we can certainly do that. But to stick to the 5-year plan, we would need to raise the rates a little bit. Probably 40 cents maybe for a person, 25 cents for a person. Looking at what that cost would be for a customer, that's a rough guess.
Yes. Well, and then conversely, I think you pointed this out, what happens if growth occurs that we didn't expect? Well, that would help us because you've got more units coming in, more people to carry the water, as it were. So
More people to serve.
more people to serve.
well, and as we get more property tax, I mean, our general budget should carry some of that. I mean, it does serve our community.
It should. I'll talk about this a little bit more next week in the financial report. This past fiscal year was the first year that in 5 years that the property taxes came in 7% under what I originally budgeted. So we had continuously seen 6 and 7% increases every single year. So that's the 3% that measure 5 and 50 kind of limit us, and then that extra is the growth that we see in our city. Well, I get my estimates of property taxes from the county. And so that number that I use to budget for, so they'll give me a number. It's typically a little bit higher, so I budget a little bit higher. That actually came back lower than what the original budget is. So that's a little concerning for the future of the general fund, just knowing that along with what you'll see on Wednesday in the financial presentation, with our system development charges is you see 2 years ago, we had this really big spike because we had a lot of development coming in. And we were just sinking the ships with cash and permit fees and system development charges. That this last fiscal year, 21-22, was the start of it dipping down and going back to more what I would consider normalizing over the next few years. So there is opportunity for development still. But it won't be at the rate that we've seen over the last couple of years, is my assumption.
And that orange line, your 5-year plan, does not assume any abnormal growth at all. It's a very conservative look.
Another question. Let's say we borrow $10. Okay, we're gonna have to pay that back. Now, since inflation goes, what is a $10 today worth in 5 years?
Tell me what your discount rate is, and I'll tell you.
Okay, the point is, I'm gonna charge you $10, because we borrowed it, and I'm gonna have to have you, the taxpayer, pay the interest on the $10 loan.
And the principal to repay it.
Agreed. But in 5 years with the inflation that's minuscule, because hopefully my income and everything else has followed the index up.
But your costs are going up.
I'm not worried, I'm just worried, when I borrow something, what is the value that I have to pay back? Is it the number that I borrowed it at in 2022, even though the inflation has changed in 2027?
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if I say I've got to pay $5 for my water
You're sounding
bill,
like my wife.
how people hurt is what I'm trying to get around. It hurts me to pay
Borrow the money
$5.
today because inflation will make it look cheaper in the future.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's a
You're always gonna argue about they're paying too much.
That's a slippery slope, sir. Because you're gonna have a certain limit of capacity.
Yep.
And you folks are very conservative people. And just during our conversations at the council meeting, I mean, there was a lot of apprehension that just to take out borrowing to borrow for the sewer plan because you want, and like this committee said, we've got a responsibility to the future to provide them with a better platform than what we've got today. And what you're proposing to here is potentially saddling that next generation with a bunch of principal outstanding on that debt.
Yeah,
And that's
worse.
That's a struggle. That is a struggle. And I get what you're saying. You're saying you're borrowing $1 today at a fixed rate going out in the future. If inflation is growing faster, that dollar in the future is less expensive to you than that future dollar is. You're absolutely right. But
If I gotta build a new plant, I gotta pay.
you still gotta borrow the money, and that's the problem. And Rick, you've been beating on that you want to leave the ship better when you leave, right? And that's the strategy here. But you folks also have a big problem. If you want to tighten your belt in a business, you say, we're going to tighten our belt, we're going to let some people go, and we're going to sell less widgets, right? You can't sell less widgets. You must always provide 20 pounds of hydrostatic pressure in your water system at all times. You must have enough storage in those water tanks to provide simultaneous fire protection anywhere in the city. You must always provide wastewater treatment up to your DEQ permit standard. You can tighten your belt, but you still got to produce the widgets.
I have a comment on that later on about tightening our belt. I'm gonna make a comment.
Well, right now,
Are we done with the presentation?
I think so. All we've got to do is show you what comparable rates are, and you've seen this chart before. And if we add, what this chart shows for the benefit of the committee is current monthly rates, all the different colors, water, sewer, storm. You're kind of, like fairly right in the middle of the pack for comparable communities in this area is really what we're driving at. You're not abnormally high. 5 years ago, when we came in, you did have high rates, but you had very modest or marginal rate increases since that time, while other communities around you have been raising their rates pretty regularly because they face the same darn problems that you face. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, well, I want to preface this with, Matt, this is not an attack on you, and I resent that word attack. I'm here for understanding, and I'm here to try to help this city move forward. That is why I'm here. I'm not here to attack Matt Brown. So I resent that. And I think we should move forward with some more civil kind of talk. And so I just have a question about tightening our belt. And one of it is understanding what's going on with the budget. And I've got before me the master plan. And I saw here on the principle that in the master plan, the estimated cost was $700,000. And then I get this paper that is what's in our budget now. And it seems to me like we got a $600,000 thousand back as a payment on that. And then now on the current budget, it says there's 500,000. Where'd the $100,000 go? I wonder.
So we did receive a settlement payment of $600,000.
Pardon me?
We did receive a settlement payment of $600,000.
Yes.
From the reservoir.
Yes.
The estimate that I have for the cost of the project is $700,000.
Yes.
Okay,
And now we have 500 in the current budget.
where does it say 500 in the current budget?
Right in front of me.
Can you show me what you're looking at?
Right here. Capital improvement plan, page 78. What?
Where did that come from?
Of the
The
budget.
budget that we approved.
So the,
Page 78.
yeah, the repair, at the time that the budget document was created in the CIP, I believe that estimate, that $500,000 estimate came from master plan projects, if I recall.
Came from where?
The master plan project.
The master plan project says 700,000. Right here. 700,000.
Yeah,
Right here. Then we end up with 500,000 in our budget. I don't get it. I know that we got 600,000 coming in. It says, and I got asked about this, and so I did some research, and that's what I came up with, a non-answer. And we're talking about tightening our belts. We've got to know how we're tightening our belts.
So the CIP document that was part of the budget says $500,000. At the time that that was created, that was the estimate that I was told, $500,000. And that was, I believe, what was in the water master plan for the cost of the project.
Water master plan right here, right in front of me says 700.
That is not the $700,000. This document. that-
Okay, I understand. We aren't, there's paper going every which way that says different things. We haven't talked about it. I don't know anything about it. That's what makes me somewhat apprehensive of this whole thing, this whole process. I need to know. I need to know exactly why that happened. And we have $500,000 in our in the bank now. And a $600,000 check, I think made the newspaper. People know. But I don't.
So can someone talk to us about the water master plan improvements list, where those estimated costs came from, how updated is this list, et cetera? Rod?
So yeah, we did the master plan back and we got it adopted, Sharon, in
The water master plan was adopted in April of this year.
In
So
April.
this came directly from the water master plan that was adopted in April. So if there were things from the water master plan that then were different than made into the budget, I think that's the question, Matt, is how would things from the April adopted water master plan not be seen in the budget that was adopted?
Unless I mistyped that document and it should be a 5, but I guess Sharon is the latest.
I can go back. I can't.
Okay, I'm gonna try and pull it up there.
Other discussion while we're getting resolution on that question?
One of the things that I see numbers for parts. And some of these things in the future are gonna take some planning or investigation. I see no budget items for planning or investigation. And I'm gonna hit the sewer master plan. We've got a sewer plant that's outdated, old and terrible on a good day. And I'm sure DEQ and a number of other agencies are gonna come down our throat and beat the crap out of us. And they're gonna tell us what we need. How are we gonna find out what we need and how much that's gonna cost? Obviously, it's gonna cost something. Why don't we have a line in here for planning for the future?
And so I had that conversation with Mohammed and Sharon, and it was actually challenging them to actually do, like, looking at the system as a whole and trying to figure out where maybe potentially a whole new trunk line is the answer for the future growth.
I agree, but what I'm saying is, why don't we have a line here for information gathering? Whatever it comes out, I don't care what it comes out. So we delineate that we're thinking about the future. That's what I'm looking for. I know we're doing it, but how do we make it, hey, we're looking at how to solve this problem?
And ultimately, I mean, I see State Homes and Scappoose being connected in
Okay.
50-year plan, you know, and that's ultimately the best way out.
The present rate, we're 2 years late in getting started.
Well, and I have another comment. I know, Steve, you talked about like tightening up the budget, and there's only certain things that we can really do to tighten up the budget. But I remember when the company came back with the water master plan and presented it to us, that there were ideas that they had highlighted of ways that we could tighten up and save money on wasted water and things like that. So has that been addressed in this plan?
So you're talking about the leak detection and all of that stuff?
Yeah, all the stuff that they.
Yeah, so those are in here.
Okay.
And they're in the financial, 5-year financial plan. Yeah, those costs are in there.
All right, I just want to make sure that we're addressing those because those were things that were shown.
We're still looking, yeah, we actually had a meeting, post our discussion, if you recall in the presentation, we talked about potentially upgrading our meter system with ultrasonic system. In fact, I met with our supervisor today and we continue the conversation. It's a big investment. It is definitely addressed and we've been looking at it and we continue again, the budget being tight. Being extremely cautious with what to spend and what projects we allocate. And as you've seen, we have some major challenges. The contract property, we're trying to prioritize dues as number one. It's on the.
Pat ourselves on the back and make that line item that, hey, this is what we're doing. If that's an idea thing, it's compared to a part job.
I was gonna say also that I know that the mayor's talked about like all of the space that we have for storing water and how we could get creative with utilizing that to make some more money or, you know. Do you recall that idea that you had
About joining the two? My idea is ultimately to basically turn it to its own Tualatin Valley, like, and serve Columbia City, Warren, Scappoose, St. Helens. And we all pay less and they do all the infrastructure. It just, the cost savings there, it wasn't cost effective according to Scappoose. Didn't check out. And I still think it would. You keep plugging wells, but that really closes the door on that. And that's another thing. I also would like to propose that we, for the staff to, our committee here to look at our wholesale water rates and make sure that we are upping that as well. Because that has not been adjusted for a long time. And it's just with Columbia City, I know it was a long agreement because of where our well sits, but it does need to be adjusted.
Well,
On occasion, it
the
does.
situation with Columbia City, you're right. You've got a meter guy, but they don't buy any water from you.
But if they do, they have.
If they do.
And they have.
Yeah, they have in emergencies, they have, but not very much.
But we can't be giving it away.
And they've had struggles with their well. They've had biofouling with their well and iron bacteria, so.
I mean, they're literally paying less than half of a resident, less than half.
Well, they're not paying for your collection
212,
system,
2,100.
your distribution system, and I will. Minor point, Rick, I hear you, and we talked about it. You're right.
But it needs to be there.
updated.
It does need to be there, yes.
You're right. You're right.
But that was my kind of, if that's what I think you're referring to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're highlighting the different ways that we can be creative about, you know, because we are gonna have to borrow money, but making sure we're, you know, thinking outside the box and not just, you know.
Staff, can we get back to the discrepancy in numbers? Are you ready for to answer?
Yeah, I did want to clarify though that the meter change out cost is not anticipated in the 5-year plan. And it's not a project that was included on the CIP for the financials that Steve and I worked on for the 5-year.
What's it here, Doug? Here's another situation of, you know, things going in different directions. The master plan is different than the financial plan. The master plan had 20 years worth of projects. So for the 5-year water financial plan, that orange line you saw, a Bayport well activation, a repair of existing reservoir at $700,000 in the budget. So we've got $700,000 in that's gonna get paid. To install redundant Pittsburgh, Milton Creek, there's a redundancy in the line, and then distribution line replacements and backup power. So we're talking about $200,000 a year in replacing leaking lines. Your point, tighten up the system?
Yeah.
You've got $200,000 a year in the budget for that.
Which should save some money and fix some of the leakage issues.
Correct.
So Claire, going back to the master plan project, so in the master plan, it is estimated that the reservoir project will cost $700,000. In the CIP document, it does say $500,000, which was a typo. So that extra $200,000 is in the capital budget for the water fund. So we'll spend the 600 grand settlement, and then you will have to use money from the water fund to make up the difference of the estimate. So the $500,000 that is in the current 22-23 budget is a typo, and it should be a 7 and not a 5.
It's what?
It should be a 7 and not a 5.
You're saying it isn't there.
It is.
But it's in the financial plan, and the rates that you adopted for July 1st, it's in there, it's covered.
So that is a typo that just was not caught under the numerous revisions and reviews that we go through in this document.
And that we voted and adopted it, but the documents that we voted and adopted it were
Just
not
page
corrected.
page 59. where it says-
$200,000 difference.
It doesn't make a difference in the financial plan. It is still in the budget. It is literally one number on page 59 that needs to be changed to a 7.
But in your financial plan, it is correct. We have it in the plan. And it's frustrating, isn't it?
It is frustrating. It's just a budget committee member and a community member. You know, if I pull up and look at documents, I really rely on the city to be giving me really accurate information. So when I look at a budget, you know, even if the money's there, I think it's really about the public facing. So I really encourage staff and committee members and I mean, really to catch these things because I can see where that frustration comes, not just from us, but the.
Creating a over 100-page document with a lot of numbers requires not just my review, but also department reviews, as well as the administrators and our communications persons to review the documents as best we can before it gets finalized. Unfortunately, this typo was not caught, and so I can correct it and it can be updated tonight. That is not a problem. It is in the financial plan and in the rate for the next 5 years.
It's just an unfortunate situation, especially with the newspaper article, so.
Well, the newspaper article was correct that the city did receive $600,000 for a settlement. The cost of the reservoir project, according to the master plan, is $700,000.
Okay. Can I come back to this? So basically, the proposed will be kicking in here this month.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Just so everybody knows.
The boat has left the dock.
Yep. It wasn't an easy decision for the council, but we want to leave it better than we left it, you know, and that was, you know.
That's kind of the answer,
Yep.
really.
I mean, we really did public notice on our meetings like we always do, didn't have a lot of public attendance for it. We're being watched by the media all the time. It was not, you know, we have at least a half a dozen people, we had none, and it kind of actually shocked most of us because there was nobody there. And a couple councilors were hesitant, but actually knew there was such a need that we went ahead and adopted this, so. Brought it down and thank them, and I know, you know, we're public works, the urgency that it needs to be fixed, so.
And probably the biggest urgency that we're seeing in that 5-year, that orange line, the 5-year plan is the sewer and cracking right away on Basin 4. They're gonna be coming back to you a lot with a lot of stuff, a lot of updates. Budget committee will be dialed into this too, as to what exactly is going to be done and how it's gonna be financed.
Yeah. Nobody likes raising rates. Probably the expiration dates. I wish I was Oprah.
I've been doing this
Yeah,
30 years.
Free.
And I've never had a day when I went up to a council and said, man, today's the day.
I still think we're gonna get that audience once people see the bill though.
We
That's
may,
when we'll
and
get
we
the
may,
audience.
but, and you will get it out in the public for sure. You will. So.
Is the budget committee comfortable with the staff recommendation? That was also part of the discussion of.
Yes,
Is there-
we are wanting, as a council, even though we're part of it, we're wanting you guys, are you comfortable with the recommendation that is proposed here?
What will make me comfortable is if somebody says that, okay, we've got a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And how confident are we going to be that it's not going, things are not going to get in bad disrepair if we follow this plan? I mean, we're saying that we follow this plan, things should be 95% chance that things are gonna be okay.
I would say with our master plan updates being so current, yes. The answer is yes. 5 years, we have to stick to it though. Like Steve said, we can't just fall off at the 3rd or 4th year. It has to go to the 5-year mark.
And I'm not gonna kid you, at the end of that 5-year mark, we're not all gonna say, okay, we're done, happy. And we'll be facing the next slope of the line for
Yeah,
the
there'll
next
be
5
like
years.
2%, 3%, and you're always trying to adjust those.
Yeah, I know Sharon and Mohammed have talked about, there's chances of things happening in the meantime while we're trying to fix things, because they're in bad conditions. So there's still chances that things could happen and that we could, it's not gonna be perfect, but we have to stop kicking the can down the road and we have to start working on it.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't come out of Mr. Toshke's lips, and I feel like it's free on his behalf, because he's been talking about a gas tax, and that's not popular. But he's just been talking about a gas tax to help out, and he's actually probably gonna bring it up to us sooner than later. But I was surprised he didn't, because he was going to, and I said, Steve, I don't think we're ready for that. But I'm surprised it didn't come out anyhow.
That shouldn't be a problem. I don't buy gas here.
We're all going electric anyways with gas prices, right?
Yeah, Boost has one.
Steve probably listening in. Is he still on there? Yeah.
Steve?
I am. I've been listening the whole time. I do think we should do a gas tax study and start educating people about gas taxes and try to use some gas taxes for the road improvements that are going to be needed to surround the infrastructure sewer work. The time has come, in my opinion.
Thanks, Steve. I heard we should build a casino.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Steve, the question I have in this budget description, you just mentioned something may go sideways we have to fix.
Sure.
Okay, no, and I agree with that. Is it possible to put in a line says contingency, assuming that something's gonna happen and we'll use that fund? Or
Well-
can you not put in that unknown?
Actually, you've got that right now, and this is a compliment to you folks, being conservative. You have fund balances. That really is your contingency.
Okay.
You've got 3.8 million in water, you've got 2 and change in sewer. So you've got almost $5 million and a little more in storm as your quote contingency.
Should that be notified or indicated on this? That's really the question, 'cause
Most communities don't. They don't do that. Once again, your capital improvement projects, if you look at the projects, they have contingencies built into them.
yeah, I know.
But you're right, what happens if we get a comet hit us in the head or something? No, most communities don't explicitly say a percentage of the any fund balance is going to be for contingency. What we have done in our modeling is we have used industry standards for operating contingencies, and you've always passed the test. It's usually for water, it's 45 days to 60 days of operating expenses as a contingency. And for sewer, it's the same, maybe 60 to 90 days of operating expenses of contingencies. And we test for that in the model every time,
Okay.
and you pass.
The problem that I see with that it's there and we can operate it, but the people on the street don't know. You know it because you're into budgets and money handling.
Sure.
The question is, do you pass this piece of information that we've got a mechanism for handling the unknown?
I give that to your finance director.
If I can add, in the budget document, on each of the water, sewer, and fund, there is a line item that says contingency. For water specifically, page 59, it states $2.7 million. And then as an unappropriated fund balance, that is the 90-day reserve policy that we have as a city as a financial policy. So that's $835,000 that you can't touch, it's going to next year. That's the 2.7 listed in water.
And that's the point was we do list it so people know about it.
It's in your
As
budget.
compared to, we had the secret thing that we didn't tell you about. That really doesn't go over well on the street.
We call it a slush fund.
What's the policy for staff if contingency needs to ever be dipped into? When is council notified or
If you-
when is it talked about?
So there is a financial policy that outlines the 90 days for enterprise funds. There is a 20% reserve policy for the general fund. And if you recall from the budget committee meetings, that was where we looked at the 5-year forecast. When you were deciding whether or not to add the library position, you saw that line going down. And I told you at year 2, possibly year 3, is when you're going to drop below that 20% reserve policy.
But very specifically, if as department head for the comment situation happened, we need to dip into contingency, when does your liaison know about that?
Well, I can tell you that
Thank you.
there's a state law actually that follows it. It's Oregon budget law. And it says if you go above your budgeted appropriations at any time and you want to go into that contingency and you're already spent over your appropriation, you've got to do something called a supplemental budget, and it's a legislative act. So this Oregon budget law, they anticipate that.
Thank you.
So that guys like Rick don't dip into the cookie jar, you know?
We typically do a supplemental budget every June to clean up anything that was expensed during the year. And we talk about.
Even if but that's a little bit different than what I just understood. If contingencies need to be tapped into, can they be tapped into and then in June you just clean them up, or is public notified before contingencies are dipped into?
In a perfect world, you would definitely let your constituents and your liaisons know that you have this large expense that's coming up. And typically, if it's anything as far as like over $5,000 or $10,000, that requires approval from the city administrator, who typically, in my past, will call the liaison and let them know what is going on before the expenses.
Is that typical or is that city policy?
That is city policy.
So you've got belt and braces, you've got a policy for normal expenditures, and if you've got an abnormal situation where you're trying to get contingency because you've overspent your appropriation, you fall into a legislative act by statute.
And John has a little bit bigger limit than that. He always stuff. I mean,
Yeah, we're not spending money without you knowing about it, especially on priority projects and things. And, you know, if that wasn't, if those contingencies weren't appropriated, if they were unappropriated contingencies, there'd be a different process altogether to do it.
But there is a process.
Absolutely, and Oregon budget law is pretty explicit on how that process has to be followed, because over the years, you see in the paper all the time, these catastrophes of embezzlement or things like that. It's usually caught because there's a supplemental budget and it catches it through that. But there's nothing you can do if it's gonna be fraud until you catch it.
We're just wrapping up our discussion, yes.
I've got a question on that red line. What happens in the next 5 years? You've got the expenses, the projects and expenses, but where's that line gonna go in the next 5 years?
It's a great point, and the answer is it's gonna go up, it's gonna continue to go up, and it may, at the end of 5 years, the slope of that line may go higher, it may go lower, or it may be the same. We don't know. That's why we do a 5-year forecast, and we true it up every year. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, but you must have some idea if it's gonna go up a lot.
We do, but I didn't want to fit to you. We think, Rick, you nailed it, it was about 2 or 3% we were hoping for. Because we think that's, once we get the high priority stuff done, then Mohammed and Sharon can actually get out of therapy and get back to work here. But the answer is year 6 through 10, It's a guess, and years 15 through 20, I have no damn idea.
And this is where the proactive approach come in very handy, right? The recommendation overall 5 to 7 years to do a master plan. When I joined the city, I said, I will, as long as I'm here, every single 5 years, this has to be revisited because of the unknown and the changes and the inflation and whatnot. And if projects are taken off, this could go either way. But you have to revisit every 5 years as a proactive approach, because I'm not gonna rely on this for the next 10 years.
Absolutely.
Things change tremendously.
And he's absolutely right. Your next 5-year plan could be radically different. I see those beautiful charts on the table there. I could see this city's contemplating a radical change of your urban landscape here. I could see you adding 10,000 people without batting an eyelash, if this turns out the way I think it's gonna turn out.
And if we build,
Challenge staff to look at maybe just new in some areas.
yeah, and imagine we bring industries, increase, I mean, there will be.
So the answer to your question is, we just don't know.
Steve, is there any mechanism for saying, this is the worst case, this is the best case, not a plan, but a guess?
Oh,
This is a plan.
and you're right. Some people do indeed that. They do a sensitivity against the base case.
Right.
Right, where you've got boundaries. Without taking anything from Sharon and Muhammad, who know much better, I would say that you could put a confidence interval around each of those 20% up and down, and you'd be very safe. And this takes into the comet situation. This takes into what happens if your rainy well all of a sudden has a catastrophic contaminant in it. Somebody pours gasoline into your water system, what happens?
So, well, and that brings up a point, because people are scared of it, is the filling of the lagoon. That could be actually revenue positive for the city.
Right.
Which could really do a lot of good. I mean, it really could. It can be done safely. It can. They do it in other places. So I would just keep an open mind to the process. You're gonna hear toxic waste. Those are people that have not educated themselves and have not done these type of projects before. So it can be done. We'll look at the geology part of it and the bridging of the gap, because we are furthering that. We have monies to do that. I think that's all part of what we need to be discussing as well. And looking at the future of the city of St. Helens, a 39-acre lagoon is way too huge for a secondary.
Once
pond.
again, you are remarkably blessed. You've got way more wastewater treatment capacity than you need, and
That's not true, actually.
somebody 20, 30 years ago, where you were sitting right now, had the foresight to build those lagoons much larger to serve the industry.
Yep.
So now you've got all that capacity.
No. For 1960, it was okay. The new requirements say that's a detriment. 9 acres, 10 acres, if it can't meet code, it's a problem. That's one of the things, it could be a time bomb in the other direction. If everything goes the way we think it's gonna go, it looks good. You could drain that, turn it into a big marina, but that's just we're putting the sewer plant someplace else. Part of it is, what are the government regulations gonna be that we have to deal with? If it's within 100 yards of a river, you may not be able to put a gold mine there. That's a government requirement, not something we have handle of.
I'm hearing a lot of dialogue right now around other ways to raise revenue, other possible expenditures. And I think some of those might be valid conversations, but let's really tone it back to utility rate.
Right.
And Mark, do you have any questions or comments about what's being presented? John, we don't need any formal action tonight, do we? I mean, it was just really this dialogue.
The formal action was approving the minutes and then getting comfortable around this issue and understanding the importance of sticking to the plan.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't need any other formal action. So what other dialogue as it relates to the utility rates before we adjourn?
When does the public find out about our?
Good question.
I didn't hear or what?
When does the public find out about the decision that's made here tonight?
Decision that's already been made.
Yeah, we've already made a decision. Price newspapers didn't grab a hold of it.
Public record now.
And it was even in our meeting, we already adopted the increase, the first year's already happened. We've got the ball rolling. You know, if they wanna grab a hold of it, I mean, that's fine. I mean, and we probably will have some people be coming in, next meeting to say, why is my water bill so high? And we'll explain to them to the best of our ability, because we're not here or Muhammad, of what's going on within our system. That 1989 was the last sewer master update plan. And at that point in time, there was the 4th Street trunk line, right?
The interceptor.
Yep, was red, and there was failed to do anything about it. And I had heard about it, but nobody ever pounded their fist. It's gotta happen. And all of a sudden, this new master plan came out, and it's like,
Just to get to Garrett's point, though, I know that your media gal, Crystal, is that right?
Yeah.
Is really overloaded, but it would be really super lovely to see her put out something sooner rather than later, especially around what improvements will be done. Why is this rate happening, right?
Yep.
So I don't know
We
if
can
that's
do that.
happened, but.
So if I understand this correctly, we're playing catch
Special
up.
time.
That
Yes,
was the first word out of her mouth when we did the work session. Somebody's gotta tell them what we're doing.
Mark just had a great, understanding. He just said, so to my understanding, we're basically playing catch up.
Oh, lots of ketchup,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I'm just saying.
expensive ketchup.
But the good news is you don't have to catch it up all at once. Mark, we've got a plan to get caught up. You
Right.
don't have to go up to
And that's-
$240 right now to.
And that's where you're saying, hold the line.
Right, because there are some communities out there where they've got no reserves, their pipes are leaking and they're not meeting their permit and they gotta do it, otherwise a federal judge will do it for them.
In Portland.
Well, yeah.
I think that should be pointed out, that if you don't take care of some of these things, somebody else will do it for you.
And they'll send you the bill.
That's right, yeah. It isn't like, okay, we can make believe it's not happening. No. I think we came awful close in the I&I project. I think we were within 9 months of the government taking that one over.
Add that to the commercial too.
Any other discussion about the utility rate?
Nope.
Do I need a motion for adjournment? I can never remember here.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second, let's adjourn.